So pursuant to Chapter 20, the Acts of 2021, certain COVID-19 protection measures were extended as they relate to Mass General Laws, Section 30A, the open meeting law. This meeting of the City of Westfield Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation. Specific information can be found on the City of Westfield website at www.cityofwestfield.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so by turning into channel 15 or channel 12 or online at westfieldtv.org or online at youtube.com, Westfield Community Programming Channel. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the city's website an audio recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Let's do, again, roll call. Carl.
Here.
Bob.
Here.
Tom.
Yes, here.
Jim.
Yes, here.
Alex.
Here.
Cliff.
Here.
Would anyone like to address the commission on any item not on the agenda? Seeing none, first items, public hearings, NOIs. Toccoa Country Club, and they request a continuance until the next meeting on August 24, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Give a motion.
So moved.
You have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Carl?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Cliff?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. Thank you. Okay, item B is 81 Fowler Road. Hearing continued from July 27th. And we did receive an updated planting plan. Okay, Meredith.
Yeah, we received an updated planting plan. The applicant has added shrubs to the area that we're concerned about within the 50-foot buffer zone that is currently a hayfield. I don't know if Ryan is here or Levesque is here and they want to go over the most recent plan with us.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Ryan Nelson from R. Levesque Associates. I'd like to attempt to share my screen. I think I have to be enabled.
You want it?
Okay, thank you. Alrighty. As Meredith stated, a couple of revisions. I'll go over what has changed since last time. We're showing proposed plantings within this 50-foot buffer zone within the existing hayfield. Those would be 2 red maple trees and then 5 winterberry shrubs. We're also proposing that birdhouses be installed along the 50-foot buffer zone to demarcate that area and its significance versus the rest of the yard area. And then also boulders would be placed along the edge of field so that no future encroachment of clearing would occur beyond those boulders. And then we're also proposing that 2 conservation signs on posts displaying the typical Westfield conservation signage be installed, 1 here and then 1 here. Aside from that, nothing else has changed.
Ryan, just to get us back into thinking about this project, help me understand again, if you would, with your marker, show us the 50-foot
Sure.
line. Thank you. And now would you show us the silt fence line or the limit of work line?
Limit of work would be hugging the 50-foot along here, and then it's offset about 1 foot in front of the 50-foot buffer zone, the silt fence line.
I thought the silt fence line was that squiggly line to the right.
This one?
Yeah.
No, that's the existing tree line, the existing edge of woods.
Oh, all right. So show me again the silt fence, because I did
Right
have
here.
that.
Yep, where it says, it's a thin line type and it says SF.
All right. And Ryan, tell me again why it's necessary to be in this area. Why is it necessary to be in the 50-foot buffer zone?
Sure, a couple limitations. One being the septic system. This was the best site on the property to put a septic system. We're also very tight to building setbacks. This dashed line that comes to a triangular point here is the building setback based on the property lines. So we've wedged the house as far as we can to the left to fit within that. There's really no other place we can put the house.
I don't know much at all about septic design, but are there not systems that are smaller that are probably more expensive, but are there systems that would not require that amount of, could you shift everything to the left and stay away from the 50-foot buffer zone?
No, because we run into this triangular shaped building setback.
Well, first, go back to the first question. Are there systems that could have been designed that would take up less space? And were they considered?
Yes, I'm sure there are advanced systems that would have a smaller footprint. But I'm not so sure that would help us. It's none of the impacts related to the septic system are in the buffer zone. That's all outside and upland.
All right. And then in DEP's comments, he asked the question, is there already a home on this lot? And I think you responded that yes, there is. Are there already 2 homes on this lot?
No, there's only one. Let me see if I can share a GIS image. Hold on. So this is the field we're talking about right now, right here. So there's an existing house located here. There's a pretty steep drop off from this tree line down to the stream in the wetlands. So there's really no viable area to put anything on this side of the wetland. And plus that would be all tree clearing within the buffer zone in order to do anything over there. So the intent is that once, if this passes conservation approval, that the lot would be subdivided through an A&R process where both lots would have adequate frontage and area, that this would be a standalone lot with its own house.
I see. Okay, so he already subdivided the lot once. Is that it?
Years ago, but he has since recombined them. So right now it's all one piece.
I see.
It hasn't been subdivided yet, no.
Yeah, obviously you know where I was going with this. I was hoping that there would be an opportunity to leave this as a agricultural use and Dad is able to build a house for the kids somewhere else on his property. But I see now that would not work. Ryan, maybe the most important question, or at least one that puzzles me, if you could put back the schematic of the design. We've been through this a number of times, so I won't beat it up, but very consistent. The Westfield Conservation Commission has been very consistent in restricting or not allowing new construction, which is what this is, to be within the 50-foot buffer. Now I understand what you're doing. You're encroaching a little bit, and your justification is that it was already being used as a hayfield, so that the area was being cut. I understand that and I accept that, but I really have a problem with this project, with us breaking a rule that has been pretty golden with since I've been on the Conservation Commission. The reason that you're encroaching is so that the new owners can cut this swath twice a year. Tell me why that's important to them.
Sure. So yeah, I absolutely respect what you guys strive for and historically the track record. So just to clarify, we are not doing any disturbance within the 50-foot. We're sacrificing what we previously were asking for lawn space. Now is going to be mowed 1 to 2 times a year, which is the same as it has been. We're throwing in some shrubs. And the reason for maintenance of this area is, sunlight, air movement around your house. In terms of storm damage, you don't want moss. You need adequate ventilation around your house. We don't want woods growing up right against the house. So the idea is to keep some sort of semi-maintained, a common ground between conservation and house maintenance on this right-hand side of the property.
And you're talking about, or the new property owners and you would like to be able to cut this twice a year for the entire swath, right? All the way up to the top of the page? You keep circling this one area, but you're talking about cutting the grass, cutting the whatever grows there
So
down.
the existing field area within the 50-foot buffer zone. So if I was to draw it, it would be that area right there.
Why not the whole area? Why isn't the homeowner concerned about, have the same concerns with tall vegetation to the northeast of his property?
This is existing wood, so this is beyond the limits of the field. Over here, this is all woods and will remain woods.
Right. All right, I'll pause. Thank you, Ryan, for your answers.
Sure, not a problem.
Other questions?
I have a question,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Ryan, why aren't the conservation signs along the 50-foot buffer? Is that because they want to continue to mow it?
That's correct. Yeah, it would have some sort of conditional maintenance. I mean, we can put them wherever you guys like.
It just seems a little confusing that we don't really want them encroaching on the 50-foot, but the conservation signs won't be on the 50-foot line. But will the bird houses be on the 50-foot line?
Yes, that's kind of what I gathered from your email. That's what I was showing. So these markers with a C would be the birdhouse locations.
I guess I had another question as well, if I may. I'm wondering, is the interest in mowing semi-annually that area that you had outlined earlier, is that the reason that you want to limit the number of plantings in there?
No, I mean, it's not a very large area. If I was to give you a dimension here, 20. It's about 25 feet across at the widest part and about 55 feet long. So that's about 1,375 square feet. And we have 5 shrubs and 2 trees. So I wouldn't call it sparse, but.
Okay.
What about the particular species that are in there? I know, Meredith, you had some thoughts on some other types of vegetation that might go in there.
Yeah, originally, Ryan had sent this plan the night of our last meeting, and he had some different shrubs in here, not ilex. I was hoping to, what I like to see is vegetation that is already on the site planted, not just something that, like a random wetland plant that may or may not do well on the site. Usually if something is already growing at the site, then it's likely going to, other plants like that will continue to grow, be okay there. Plus, I think it was serviceberry that he had in that area, and it just seemed like a lot of one type of species. So I suggested some others, and Ryan updated the plan, and now he has 5 winterberry shrubs and 2 red maple trees.
Okay. Are
So
you
that-
reasonably
yeah.
happy with that selection?
Yeah, I think it's at least a little bit more diverse than just serviceberry.
And again, as you get, Meredith, excuse me, as you get to the back, it gets more and more wet because the brook's back there. So
Does.
as our discussion was, winterberry does real well in wet areas. And, you know, the birds love it because of the berries, and I just think it's going to work better.
Yeah, and it's pretty in the winter. My only other concern is the homeowner being able to find winterberry at a nursery. But I guess hopefully the contractor will take care of that for them. And my other suggestions were dogwood or elderberry, because I saw both of those out there when we did the site visit.
Okay, other questions?
Hey, Alex, at our last meeting, when we kind of wrapped this up, it was your suggestion that perhaps shrubs be considered, and to the proponents' credit, thank you, they have been added. Alex, did you picture, when you were making that suggestion, or even now, do you picture that area being mowed or unmowed? I believe 2 weeks ago, you were thinking that it would not be cut, but I may not have understood.
No, I think your recollection's right, Tom. My suggestion was plant it, let it go back to the 50 foot as a compromise. If it's a low growth shrub, you still get, you know, we didn't talk about the air circulation issue last meeting, but I guess you as long as it wasn't thick, mature forest, you wouldn't be totally suffocating the house. But no, I was envisioning that being the compromise, that was kind of given up.
As was I.
Because, you know,
Ryan,
the argument that it's mowed as a meadow now, great. Well, there's not a house there now either. So the house is going to go in and then let that go back within the 50. And my suggestion was to, you know, get them on the plan and approve it with the condition that it wouldn't be mowed going forward. You know, you wanted them back to see it, and that's fine, Tom. You know, and here we are talking about it again. So credit to you there.
And it's probably a good thing we are, because the plan before us is suggesting twice a year cutting. So it's not really what either of us envisioned.
Yep, agreed. So, I mean, as I stated last meeting, I don't, you know, just from a regulatory standpoint, I don't think we have really the flexibility to say no, but, you know, if we can get that mowing removed and allow that to grow back into the 50-foot buffer, then I'm basically done with this one. I think reluctantly, as I stated it last time.
I also will shake hands and vote yes on this project if this area remains unmowed.
You just let it naturalize. Yep. You think that's amenable, Ryan?
Unfortunately, I don't think our client that allows him enough maintenance around the house. No, I don't, I'm sorry, but I can't revise the plan to show that.
Well, I mean, could he take the garage off then and slide the house over? I mean, you know, where are we here? We're asking you to put some shrubs in. Like
This what's shown is as tight and as condensed as we can get for what he's looking to do.
All right. Well, I have a question then, Ryan. There are other options on the septic systems. Has he looked into that?
Right, but that's kind of independent of the constraints of the house. We can't shift the house due to the building setbacks, not the septic system.
You could shift it with a zoning ordinance.
Is that true? Can you get a variance on the
You can apply for one.
setbacks? Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not sure I understand the airflow thing around the house. I mean, that area is, I think, wouldn't it be more of a concern that the back corner of the house is basically at the edge of a forested?
yeah, and that's exactly why we're requesting to mow it 1 to 2 times a year, this strip right in here. That's still within the 50. And then this would be cleared. This is from 50 to 100. That's the existing tree line. So this would be cleared.
Ryan, one of our board commission, one of the problems I've foreseen, we talked about it before, and I think most of us agree that this area, it will be so hard to police. It will be so difficult for any of us or any of our predecessors, any of the people that follow us, it's just going to be unresistible. The guy's going to be out there with his tractor. He's going to cut this, maybe not the first year, maybe not the second year, but eventually I fear the boulders and the birdhouses will be ignored. It's so much clearer, so much easier if we just say, stay away, keep 50 feet away. That provides no confusion. Thus, I think it should remain natural. It should not be cut twice a year.
I would certainly feel a bit more comfortable if that were done as well. Yeah, and it was sort of my understanding as well that that area that we keep talking about was in fact to go back to natural state rather than being mowed twice a year.
Ryan, would you put with your colored indicator the area that they wanted to mow again?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, it looks like the most important area is up on the upper left, which right next to the corner of the house.
Yep.
And then that remains pretty narrow as you go down to the right. You see a constriction there, and then it widens as it comes down on your paper. To the commission, we're looking for, I guess, some accommodation here. What if they were allowed to mow the small little piece that goes up to the left, to the corner of the house, and then the bottom part, the larger piece from that constriction downward, just leave that one and not mow that. Because you can't, I guess you can't have a hayfield within a foot of the corner of the house, and that doesn't seem practical if we're going to approve this.
I'm fine with that, Mr. Chair.
I'm fine with that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and we have to remember that this is still going to be vegetated. I
Right.
think we're getting some shrub plantings. We could get more. I mean, usually if you were going to plant a whole area, wouldn't you divide the area by how much diameter each shrub would take up? So we could increase the shrubs, but like I said, ultimately this area is still going to be vegetated. I think we're still providing protection to the wetlands. most of the 50-foot buffer zone is forested.
Mhm.
And they are going to be planting 2 trees. So they wouldn't be allowed to mow their trees or the shrubs they're planting. So
Right.
wouldn't that eventually become forested? Even with minor mowing once or twice a year?
Mhm.
Maybe not forested, but the trees would grow and get bigger.
Other species would come in probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the dominant always survives.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get in the way of this. I'm basically ready to deal with a motion on this if, Mr. Chair.
Ryan, you can see where we're heading as far as the area that could be mowed and the other that shouldn't be mowed.
I'm not, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not quite sure the logic behind it. We're improving existing conditions.
How do you mean that, Ryan? What's an improvement?
We're adding shrubs and we're putting a limitation on how often it can be mowed. Right now, the farmer could go out and till this whole thing with no silt fence, with no erosion controls. He has every right to do that. The future use will not be doing that.
With
We'll be
no
adding-
house, with no house. I mean, come on.
He's not gonna till that area. There's no way. There's no way he's
We
gonna till.
we don't know that. He has
I
every
know,
right
but-
to.
I know he is, but he's not gonna do it.
Well, that's the same speculation on the future homeowner cutting beyond what he's supposed to.
Because there isn't a crop that's gonna survive over there.
No, just that was like worst case scenario. Mr. Chairman, it sounds like we got 2 choices, or at least I think we've got 2 choices. Either we ask Ryan to go back and redesign the area that'll be cut. In other words, take your suggestion, make it a much smaller twice a year cutting up in that northeast corner. Maybe also give Ryan a chance to examine alternative septic systems. Ryan, I don't understand why you couldn't slide everything to the left. You said
There's-
something about setbacks. so-
Tom, there's zoning dimensional setbacks where you can't place a structure beyond a certain distance from front property line, side and rear property lines. So that
I-
offset projection is this dashed line and we're wedged in that sliver. We can't go any farther to the left without encroaching.
The northern offset, what is that? I understand you have to be so far from the road. What do you have to be so far from your neighbor's property?
The rear yard, which is the rear property line, you have to be a minimum of 50 feet in rural residential zone. So that would be this dimension from this property line to that offset is the building setback line.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, well, if the septic, if you feel you've examined that thoroughly and it's not an alternative that's acceptable, then I'll agree with that. Maybe move the garage. Does the garage need to be there? Can it go somewhere else? Maybe make the home. It seems this could be resolved fairly easily. I don't know why. Because the guy wants more lawn? Is that what we're talking about? He wants to have more lawn?
We do this day in and day out with all these design factors. There's no other place to put this house on this property. This is the most condensed layout we can do. This is what we're proposing.
Is that city water or is it gonna be well?
It's a well. The proposed well is located
Okay.
right here.
Okay.
I mean, we can approve it with special conditions and I guess if the homeowner, Meredith, if that's correct, can the homeowner can appeal what we've set in our special conditions?
Yeah, there's an appeal period.
Okay.
They don't like what we permit.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Hey, I just wanted to say that with the garage, I know there was some concern with that, and they are maxed at that 52 feet for the rear line. If they did swap it to the other side, we actually wouldn't want that because it'll be closer to the buffer zone. You know, they'll be right on the edge with the driveway. You know, you can have oil spills or plowing, you know what I mean, which would put it into the 50 on the other side of the house. So I think, you know, if you look at that, his front setbacks, his back setbacks, he is wedged right in there. Just pointing it out, unless he doesn't do a garage, you know what I mean? But just pointing it out.
You know, I think to the commission, I think we've gone as far as we can go, and it depends on what we want to set as conditions, and then again, the homeowner can agree with it, or they can appeal it and go from there. But I think we've discussed this enough. You know, the house is where it has to be because of the, again, as Brian said, the setbacks on the property. So
I agree. I totally agree. Let's move on.
okay. First, any comments or questions from the audience in this particular project? Seeing none, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Don't move.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll be the second.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carl,
Yes.
Tim,
Yep.
Alex,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Cliff. Cliff?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll vote yes as well. Thank you.
I'll also vote yes to close.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Meredith, why don't you do this conditions? I'm not sure if I can get them up on this laptop. Okay. Okay, let's scroll down, past the general.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Okay. Hold on. All the general conditions. Okay.
Okay, so there's no SWIP involved.
I can't, is it over an acre? I don't think so.
No.
Okay, thank you. So no SWIP, no.
Okay, 51, deed recording, yes.
Yep.
DEP sign, yes. Restriction language, yes.
Yes. Oh, sorry, you're waiting for me.
Yes.
Sorry, I thought you were going.
No, I can't get here.
I'm trying to write and go through. So here, let me, okay, so you got the deed restriction.
There's no wildlife habitat. Applicant letter, yes.
Yes.
Contractor letter, yes.
Mhm.
Excavator copy, yes. Construction sequence, yes.
Yeah.
Erosion
Oops.
controls, whoops, 59. Yes.
Yep.
Pre-construction meeting, yes, probably important.
Yeah, that's going to be important with this one. Let me keep going.
Emergency contact information, yes. 48-hour notice, yes. There is this is a septic system, so the Title V should be submitted, correct?
Yes, we will need I think we can ask for a approved septic plan.
Okay,
What they have on there is just where they're proposing it. It's not the actual septic design.
Okay.
So yes,
there's no water quality certification for this one.
correct.
Permanent markers, as indicated on the plan.
Yep.
Now, there was a question about the boulders being off the 50-foot line. Is that acceptable to the commission? Do you want to put them on the 50-foot line?
I
That
think
would
they
be-
should go on the 50-foot line.
I agree with that.
Okay. So make a notation. So that's different from what's on the plan.
Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
Oops.
Well, they indicated the signage would be per our usual signage
Yep, they have two.
and the birdhouses as well.
So those are, just to clarify, the birdhouses are proposed on the 50-foot line.
Yes,
The signs and the boulders were proposed on the edge of the existing tree line.
well, I think the commission wants them on the 50.
Yeah, they should be on the 50.
Everything on the 50?
Mhm. 50's 50.
Okay.
Okay. There's no comp storage. No
Right.
basins.
We might circle that just because they might need to do that just during construction to manage stormwater, but it's not.
Okay. So circulate 68 then.
Okay.
Okay.
So, oops, tag trees.
They're not tagging trees, are they?
Well, they're clearing up to the 50-foot line in the back where it's currently forested.
Okay.
We could either do that just by putting the silt beds in ahead of time
At the 50.
at the 50, and I could approve it that way, or
Let's do
tag.
that then.
Okay, I'll just make a note. The limit of work is the silt fence line,
Okay,
so they don't need to tag every tree.
right.
So, no permanent basins. No salt, I don't think that's, I mean, this is a pretty small driveway and single family homes are,
Mhm.
well, they're exempt from stormwater standards.
All right, so we don't have to worry about low flow either.
So none of that. I don't know, liquid fertilizer.
So you're not inside the buffer zone,
Well,
right?
they're in the 100-foot buffer zone. The whole house and lawn will be in the buffer zone.
How
So we
about
probably
limit-
don't,
how
I
about
mean, we
limit-
can say no lawn fertilizer. I don't know. I mean, there's no way of me preventing that, but
No,
Yeah, that's not enforceable.
but keep it outside the 50.
yeah, okay.
Okay, erosion controls, straw bales only.
Yep.
Installation number 75, yes.
Okay.
Stockpile 76, yes. Avoid heavy rain, yes. There's no catch basins.
No.
Okay,
No grease. I wouldn't, oh, sorry. No,
no grease traps.
No.
Okay, there's no stormwater structures.
no.
Okay, so just keep working.
We might circle street sweeping because I've been having problems with other single family homes. You know, that's normal construction practice to keep sediment in the limit of work.
Okay, look at that one.
And they should have I don't think that I saw that on the plan. They really should have a construction entrance. Especially if they have to bring a lot of soil in for the septic.
Okay, let's do that one too.
All right, I'm gonna, there's no formal stormwater structures. Whoops.
All right, we don't need a monitor. There's no dewatering.
We hope not.
Yeah. No dredging.
Oops.
There's no replication. Stabilization, yeah.
We want that. Hold on. Let me catch up on the hard copy here.
Okay,
Okay. Oops.
107, yes. 106, yeah.
106. Yep.
108, yes.
Okay.
Future buyers, yes. Okay, stormwater structures, we don't need that one. We don't need an operation maintenance plan, do we?
No, because that's usually for stormwater management.
112 conditions of perpetuity, yes.
Yes.
Okay, and a bond? Jim?
Well, I'm going to defer to you folks because you're more aware of the project than I am, and I was also not at the last meeting. So I really can't contribute on this.
I always like to try to go backwards on when we're trying to think of a bond and envision what it would cost the city to fix things if things got messed up and everyone walked away from it. In this case, I don't see much that could happen bad. You know, he is taking trees down within the 100 foot. So maybe he goes in there and cuts a dozen trees and goes belly up or decides to build a house somewhere else. We'd want to at least try to replace some of those trees. So I'm thinking something nominal, Jim, maybe like $2,000-$3,000. I don't know how the rest of you feel about that. It may be too low.
3 sounds okay to me. How about the commission?
Yeah, I guess to pitch in, the only other sort of bad thing could be potentially digging the foundation and laying the foundation in and then walking away, in which case you'd need to remove the foundation. I don't know if that adds to it significantly or not.
How about 4 then?
How about?
You're right, Carl. You're right. We would want to do that because it is within the 100 foot buffer.
How about a 3 to 5 range?
Well, you got to give an exact number.
I know, I'm just saying a range and let everybody think about the number.
Oh, you split the difference at 4.
4
All right.
sounds all right to me, yeah.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, so that'll be 4, Meredith.
Okay.
Then we've got, you indicated some special conditions.
Yes, I was going to suggest, you know, if they're going to be doing herbicide treatment out there for the invasive species work, that I meet with them and we get a name and contact number. You know, it has to be a licensed professional to do that type of work.
Okay,
And I did take this from the invasive species plan that LeVec provided. So maybe we can just reference the invasive species management plan will be followed.
okay,
And I can include it in the order.
all right, thank you. Okay, any other conditions from the commission?
Are we approving this with no mowing within the 50, except, how do we word that around the house? So I'd be okay with periodic mowing around the house, but the larger chunk within the 50 that we're planting trees in and shrubs in, I would like to have left alone.
Okay, I think that's what the commission was looking at, so I guess the, you know, as Ryan drew it, there's a narrow region up near the house, and then it comes to a sort of a neck, and then as you move towards the road, it widens out. And I think from the neck south should be, you know, is the region we want left alone, you know, after they put in the shrubs and the trees.
Mhm.
Look, can that be indicated on the,
Go for-
indicate that on the map, on the plan, Meredith?
I mean, we have to have a condition unless, because Ryan's not gonna update the plan again.
Okay,
So
we'll just
we
state
just
that.
need, or I guess I could draw on the map. I don't know if I can do that.
Mr. Chair, I think we moved the boulders up. It's not necessarily going to be easy to get in there.
Right.
I know I was fighting the mowing in the lower part, but I don't know. I don't think we're make or break on this. I think we let it go. We've moved the boulders. We've made it difficult to really get in there and clear in the future. And those natives shrubs and things we put in there will start to take over, and there'll be less to mow over time. So I think we take what we got.
So you're okay with mowing periodically then?
Yep. But 1 to 2 is stated on the plan.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I couldn't understand what you guys were saying.
Tom, I'm just saying that, we've packed that area, you and I were saying, why, okay, maybe we'll let them mow the sliver up top, but why are we
Right.
gonna mow the bigger piece? And I'm looking at it saying, we move the boulders out. It's gonna be harder to get in there anyway. And those shrubs and trees that are in that area are gonna take over pretty quick. It's not really gonna be like a lawn that's mowed, and used as lawn. So I think we've accomplished our objective, and we're just kind of mincing small things at this point, and we need to move on.
So we want to remove from the site plan the wording that the area will be mowed twice a year.
I'm saying
We
leave the
wanna
site
make-
plan alone and move on. I think once we pass our ordinance, we can, say no to a project like this, but I'm kind of over it, to be honest with you.
We got into this with the agreement that there'd be no cutting. Now, are you trying to argue for cutting, Ryan?
No,
I mean,
Ryan,
Alex, I'm sorry, I got the names confused. We do want to remove that from the drawing, right? We want to take off the wording that gives permission to cut that area, that entire area, twice a year. I don't mind, like you said, I don't mind giving them that northeast corner, and maybe we could define it by 10 feet away from the house and 20 feet toward the road or whatever. It didn't look like a regular rectangle, but I think if we're going to do what we intended, what I thought we were headed, we have to remove that twice a year. Otherwise, he'll be cutting it twice a year or more frequently.
I have to agree with Alex. I just think that he thinks it's going to be so tight that once it gets established, there's no way he's going to be able to go in there and mow it. That's all, Tom.
Mhm.
Because of the trees, you mean, Bob?
Yeah,
What's gonna
because
make
of the
it tight?
shrubs and the trees and everything is just going to start to grow back in. And I don't think he's even going to want to do that. Again, I don't know. I'm speculating, but
I think the result will be a naturalized area over there. And, he may try to mow it the first couple of years because it says he can, but I think he's going to get tired of it pretty quick. It's not going to be like an area of lawn.
Well, if
I
we're
know what
sort
you're-
of assuming that he's not gonna mow in there, why don't we just make it that he shouldn't?
I'm willing to accept whatever we're done with. Like I'm so over this single family house.
Yeah, we really have to move on. I mean, I think we just
Yeah.
either accept the plan as it is. Again, it's going to be vegetated. The silt fence is going to be protecting this area during construction. They're planting in it. I think mowing it, I agree with what Alex and Bob are saying. Mowing it is going to be a pain. Now we have the boulders on the 50-foot line, the signs, and the birdhouses. It's like getting past there is going to be like an issue. So if they want to weed whack it a couple times a year, it's still going to be vegetated with native pollinators like it is now. And it's going to naturalize, stuff is going to grow in.
and even if he weed whack it, even if he weed whacks, it's going to come back in no time. So
Right.
it's not,
We were
yeah,
out there, it hasn't been mown this year and it's full of,
a lot of native species.
yeah. So I think we
Move on.
All right,
we really need to move on.
All right, I guess I'm willing to do that.
so,
Small area.
Yeah.
all right, so it's left as the plan 1 or 2 times a year then. Okay, any other conditions?
Maybe the contractor entrance, did we mention that?
Yes, we did. Okay.
Alex, you're right. We have spent an inordinate amount of time on a silly single-family home, but it's the precedent, and I justify every second we've spent on this because it's made us think again about, you know, how important it is to not develop within 50 feet of a resource. So thanks to not only you, but all the commissioners and the applicant and Ryan for battering through this one more time.
Okay.
Appreciate your perspective on that, Tom. Definitely.
Thank you. With no further discussion, all in favor? Bob,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Jim,
Yep.
Tom,
Did I
Oh,
miss
yeah.
the motions? Did I miss the motions to accept the conditions?
yes, you did, because we didn't have them. Okay. Thank you, Colleen.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we accept the special conditions as written.
Okay, got a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, then, all in favor? Bob,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes as well. Thank you all. Okay, item C, 898 Southampton Road. Applicant requests continuance to August 24th. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So
So
moved.
Have a
Carl.
second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Carl,
Yes.
Jim,
Yep.
Tom,
Yes.
Cliff,
Yes.
Alex.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, item D, 1515 Granville Road, Springfield Water and Sewer Commission. So the
Mr. Chair, I
question-
need to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. According to provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, a public hearing will be held on August 10th, 2021 at 6:30 PM by virtual meeting regarding a notice of intent submitted by Springfield Water and Sewer Commission for the construction of a new underground storage tank and pumping station within the 200-foot riverfront area to Cook Brook, located at 1515 Granville Road. And we do have DEP comments. Do we have a proponent for the applicant?
Melissa, is that you?
That's us, Bob. So
Okay, welcome, Melissa.
thank you. Also with me this evening, Bob Stoops from Springfield Water and Sewer Commission and Peter Grabowski from Ty and Bond. Bob, did you want to say a few words before we go into the weeds?
Yeah, just for a minute, if you don't mind. Appreciate the time that you offer me here. Good evening, commissioners. I'm Bob Stoops, the chief engineer, Springfield Water Sewer Commission. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. I got a head cold and I can barely hear myself.
No, you're okay.
Okay, thank you. I've been before the commission in the past and on a few successful projects with Ty and Bond, specifically with Melissa Cody. I have a lot of confidence in her work. Hoping this becomes another successful project. But I'm here to talk tonight about a design build project for a new clear well tank and a backwash pump station at the water. There's a very good description of the facilities and the needs, et cetera, in the NOI. So I'm not going to get into that. I assume that Pete and Melissa will get into that a little more detail. So I just want to talk about the need a little bit, just for a minute. You know, we have treatment systems up there that treat about 50, 60 million gallons a day of water on an average day. And it feeds about 250,000 people in the valley. It's comprised of primarily two treatment plants. The original plant, Slow Sand, that were built in the early 1900s. And then a more modern plant, we call it, built in 1974. It's a rapid sand plant that produces most of our water. And due to drinking quality water regulations, we really depend on that rapid sand plant, not only for production, but also for water quality criteria. So recently we've had some facilities planning going on up there, and we've identified the clear well. It's a 1 million gallon tank, and the backwash pumps that are required to clean the rapid sand filters as being critical infrastructure that are single points of failure. The clear well tank that stores water for backwashing is a circa 1925 tank. It's a concrete tank with minimal reinforcing. It's a risky tank. It's starting to show signs of its age. The roof is leaking and the structure is showing some degradation. Last year we had one of the backwash pumps fail, And we found it almost impossible to get parts for that pump system. The way it was designed in its configuration make it virtually impossible to replace in its place. So what we really have is we have existing systems that we can't take offline in order to produce water. And we looked at all different kinds of ways to try to solve this problem without building new, but we have to build new. And I guess that's where we are. So, you know, we're turning it over to Ty and Bond and their partners, C.H. Nickerson, to build this facility for us. And I think they're doing a good job as far as looking at the environment and mitigation of the environment. But I just want to let you know the importance of the project and the need. And we've looked at alternates and really have come up with this as the only solution we can come up with. So with that said, I appreciate your time, and I turn it over to our experts. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa, would you like to start? Or
I would, and if I could get permission to share my screen.
you turn up your volume a little bit?
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So let me just make sure. All right, everyone can see the aerial view of the site. So as Bob mentioned, you know, Springfield Water and Sewer and Ty and Bond have been before the commission several times in the past few years. So I think there's probably some familiarity with the West Parish Filters property, but I want to go over the lay of the land relative to the current proposal to construct the Clearwell and Backwash pumping station. But I will do a little tour of the facility just as to orient the commission with other projects, other footprints of work. As the commission is aware, the first project we discussed was the buried chlorine feed lines project. And that was generally in this vicinity, north and east of the proposed footprint of work that you see outlined here in red. Bridge number 3, the replacement of bridge number 3, which was to the west here. And then bridges 1 and 2. So bridge number 1 over here, bridge number 2 here. And then this red outline represents the limits of work associated with site preparation, demolition, and construction of the Clearwell and Backwash pumping station, as well as underground utilities and staging area. So again, to orient the commission, Cook Brook is the wetland resource area, essentially that flows through the site, perennial stream. Typically flows into the upper lagoon and then down into the lower lagoon before it discharges from the site and returns to its stream channel. So within the site and within the proposed limits of work, we have work within the 200-foot riverfront area of Cook Brook, as well as the 100-foot inner riparian zone, which overlaps in this vicinity with the 100-foot buffer zone as well. So anything described in the buffer zone is within the first 100 feet of riverfront area. And as the commission is familiar, this is a historically developed property. It's been well over 100 years that it's been developed and in service as a drinking water treatment plant. And as Bob described, this is the providing service to roughly 250,000 people. So critical infrastructure is an accurate description at this time. So we'll do some site photographs that were in the notice of intent just to give that particular view, and then I'll go to the project drawings to talk about the proposed activities. So this is an existing paved access road. I'm going to bounce back here. So this is right here. And this little brown square is this building right here. And that's the existing stairwell building that is going to be demolished. And this, what appears to be maintained lawn with all these manhole covers in it, is actually the top of the sand filter beds. And that's this area here. These are beds that were, as Bob described, these were taken out of service in the early 70s when the rapid sand filters were constructed. The proposal includes demolishing the entire area, the entire beds 1, 2, and 3. So what you don't have an appreciation for, and I certainly didn't before this project, was that about,
Hey, Martha.
yeah, sorry, about 18 inches below the maintained lawn area is the top of the concrete structure. So it's not natural native soil beneath this. It's man-made infrastructure. It's generally impervious, and that those concrete structures are filled with sand, which was the filter media.
And just so to put things in perspective, each one of those filter areas is about 23,000 square feet. So, you know, all of that area that consists of those 3 old filters takes up quite a bit of area that is not, that's impervious after you get below that 18 inches of green roof.
Thank you, Peter. Okay. And then this area here is maintained lawn with underground utilities, and that is roughly this area where the contractor has identified a need for staging. And then what you see outside resource area is where the clear well and backwash pumping station will be constructed, as well as piping, the linear pathway for piping and connections to the building here. So I will jump to the permit drawings. I think the aerial photos make it a little easier to appreciate where you are on the site. But for illustrative purposes, I've highlighted in blue the limits of 200-foot riverfront area. These are those sand filter beds that will be demolished. This is the existing rapid sand filter building, and Cookbrook is this feature on the drawings here. Okay. That's a sheet layout. So again, this just demonstrates the limits of demolition and erosion and sedimentation control barriers. So as you can see, aside from an erosion control barrier on the far side of the existing paved access road, work is limited in this area to the south side of the existing access road. And again, this shows the limits of excavation or disturbance to construct underground utilities. And the staging and laydown. And I would just like to get to this drawing here, which shows the clear well and backwash pumping station. So as you can see, this is this line highlighted in blue, again, represents the limits of 200-foot riverfront area. So the building has been sited outside the 200-foot riverfront area. And the entire footprint of the sand filter beds is within this vicinity. Those will go from being essentially impervious to pervious. So the project will have a net decrease in impervious area. And these areas will be loamed and seeded. But there will be access paved to come in so that there is loop access here.
Thank you.
If we could, I just would like to touch on the riverfront area improvements that are proposed. Thanks. As well as the stormwater management system, which is an underground infiltration system at the end of a pre-treatment train that includes a proprietary stormwater unit as well as deep sump hooded catch basins. So the project qualifies as stormwater redevelopment, which, as the commission may be familiar, requires that standards are met to the maximum extent practicable. In this case, the standards were completely satisfied. So 80% TSS removal, infiltrations achieved. There's a net decrease in impervious area. There is a decrease in proposed peak discharge rates for let me get this right. The 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storms. And there are no new point source discharges, so they're tying into the existing system. Oops, it'll just take me, apologies, it'll take me a moment here to advance to the storm, the riverfront area. So consistent with previous projects that the commission has reviewed, we are proposing riverfront area improvements adjacent to Cook Brook that consist of the installation of native shrubs. So this is consistent with and compatible with other approvals that the commission has reviewed and approved in the past, and does not overlap with any previous areas that the commission has reviewed and approved. So I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from the commission?
It's not really a question, David, but I wanted to, I don't know if Bob is even still there, but
I'm still here, Tom.
I meant the other Bob, the applicant.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks for hanging in there with us though, Bob. The applicant, Bob, and Peter, we have worked with them before. And of course, we all know Melissa. I have great confidence in the integrity of all three of these people. So that's just a comment.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We do have some, well, go ahead, whoever wanted to talk.
Okay, yeah, I had a quick question. I guess mostly to Melissa. What's going to happen to the material that gets demoed and then presumably removed? Where is that headed?
So the material from the sand filters, it's uncoated concrete and sand filter media, and that is going to be managed on site within this footprint under a beneficial use determination from Mass DEP. So it won't be, it will be crushed, the concrete will be crushed to 6" minus and mixed with the filter sand, and essentially will no longer be considered impervious in that area.
Okay, all right.
And that approach will also be consistent with minimizing, being in a more sustainable site and minimizing truck traffic coming in and out and bringing materials. So that's the approach that the commission and the design build team thought would be appropriate, to recycle the material, use it on site, eliminate it from taking off site. And we've done all the analysis associated with that material as well to get that beneficial use determination.
And thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Melissa, we do have the DEP comments. Can you
Sure.
address those?
Absolutely. So DEP Western Region issued comments assigning file number 333808, and some of them are consistent with what we've seen in the past, and I think I would consider them more straight comments for the purposes of information and sharing and awareness, not necessarily anything specific to compliance. So the first comment is that Cook Brook has been identified as a cold water fishery resource, and that is correct. Mass DFW has identified this as a cold water fishery resource, and the project will incorporate best management practices during construction to protect water quality, minimize erosion sedimentation. And in the long-term effect, this will actually have a beneficial impact on the volume of stormwater runoff, as well as treatment quality prior to discharge to Cook Brook. So I think the scope of work, I think, adequately addresses protection of that cold water fishery resource. The second comment is that underground stormwater chambers are subject to UIC program requirements. That's underground injection control program, and the system will be registered with Mass DEP prior to its use, prior to any stormwater entering the the system. It's a class 5 injection well by definition. So that is a registration requirement that will be satisfied prior to final connection. The next comment has to do with mitigation versus improvement. The improvement is the removal of the stairwell building within riverfront area and installation of native species. So there's a net improvement to riverfront area. As the commission is aware, this is a site that was developed long before riverfront area existed as a regulated area, and the project will not encroach closer upon riverfront in this site. The next comment has to do with providing guidance on proposed dewatering. So we anticipate that some, though not much, groundwater may be encountered during construction. However, the contractor will be required to provide adequate filtration treatment prior to discharge, and that discharge will be overland and allowed to naturally infiltrate. There will be no direct discharge to Cook Brook or other resource areas. This is a standard detail for a sediment trap. It's typically some sort of filter bag will be placed atop a geotextile fabric that's within a straw bale or wattle barrier. So the filter bag acts as the first level of filtration. And then there are multiple other filters that dewatering effluent would have to discharge through. So it both slows the velocity and filters sediment, and that facilitates infiltration outside of resource areas. And that would be placed within the limits of work that are shown on the drawings that were provided to the commission. Comment 5 notes that 5,794 square feet will not be returned to pre-existing conditions, and that is the driveway. And it's not subject to qualify as limited project because it's not an underground utility. Regardless, the project has not invoked limited project status. All the standards for riverfront area are met. The total improvement footprint associated with the proposed native plantings along Cook Brook is actually slightly over this. It's 5,800 square feet. So the performance standards for riverfront area redevelopment have been met. And then lastly, a comment regarding invasive species removal. And that is that our response is that within the footprint of these proposed native shrub planting areas, invasive species will be removed prior to the installation of the native plantings. And then the areas will be monitored for a period of 2 years, consistent with past permits. And during that time, if additional species management is required, it will be implemented as part of that monitoring. And lastly, that Mass DEP recommends that the commission consider waiting until the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs has issued a certificate. And we note that we acknowledge that that is not a requirement of the Wetlands Protection Act, but that is a comment that the reviewer has made.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Probably need a site visit for this. So we will need to continue the meeting or the hearing. Any further questions for the commission and Meredith?
I guess if we were to do a site visit, can the area be marked out that this red outline is showing?
Certainly, it could. I guess, what would the commission hope to gain from a site visit? In particular, are there areas of concern that that are standing out that we could address this evening?
I think typically on any NOI, at least some of the members need to go out and actually physically look at the site in case we have further questions.
Peter, or Bob, do you think the limits of work could be identified in the field? I almost think.
I think they're,
Okay.
it's hard to see on the drawing, Melissa, but I think when the commissioners come out on site, they're clearly identified either through slope change or through abutments to pavement. They'll be readily seen in the field, where it's a little more difficult to see it from this 5,000 foot level.
Right, agreed. There are elevation changes.
All right, thank you. Meredith, you had some questions?
I have, well, one question. The laydown area, I noticed that's really close to Cook Brook. Is there any way that could be moved to the front, outside of Riverfront area? I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen there.
Go back to the aerial again, because it's easier to appreciate relative to the rest of the site. So one of the constraints and considerations during design is that the facility has to remain fully operational. And so the logistics of siting this with existing topography relative and proximity to the limits of work, it's quite constrained in that sense. It's very constrained for a large site. Previously, for some of the projects, we were able to utilize this area adjacent to Cook Brook to the east. Elevationally, this area here is significantly higher. We also wouldn't want to site it on top of existing sand filters or clear wells.
Melissa, if I could add a little bit for clarification on top.
Thank you, Bob.
In response to, I think Meredith asked a question. I'm pointing at it with my mouse, and it's doing absolutely no good, because
Where do you want me to point, Bob?
to the existing filters, the three that are going to be demolished. Contractor intends to, once that's demolished and they've used that fill for, as described in the BUD permit, they actually intend to use that area primarily for the laydown area. Okay, the area up to the right, Melissa, the area, yeah, that is actually, there is piping configuration going in there. There's a meter vault going in, and all of our transmission mains are already there. There's 3 transmission mains that are in that area there, and we need to tie back into those 3 transmission mains. That's where they exist. So there actually is construction in that area. There is a little bit of lay down, but it's primarily a construction area, and the majority of the lay down area is going to be in that disturbed area where all the demolitions taking place. I don't know if Pete's still on the line or not, but he can confirm all that. I think I'm representing that correctly.
I think
Yeah.
you are, Bob.
Yes, and the other part of it too is if you look over towards the east, that's where all the transmission mains run through as well. So we want to avoid stockpiling material on there and having construction vehicles go on there, because otherwise we have to distribute the load so that we don't damage one of those main transmission mains. So, we're a little bit restricted because of elevated clear wells, slow sand filters, as well as the transmission mains that run through the site, because there's a lot of piping corridors that we need to really avoid. And then the other piping corridors we need to modify and connect. So we're really limited on the space of where we can put stockpile material. But Bob is correct. The majority of that is going to stay that crushing operation with mixing with the sand, as well as the excavation within that old area where the pointer is right now.
Yeah, there's all those rectangular areas that look like grass, as Melissa mentioned, are concrete structures, but the majority of them don't have any steel in them. They're old groined arches. They're beautiful architectural structures underneath the ground, but they're very susceptible to collapse if you put any large single live loads on them. So really can't drive large trucks on them or pile dirt on them or things like that. It's just not, it's not feasible.
Will the new filter beds have a concrete cover like the current ones you're taking out?
The new facility is a tank. It's a clear well tank.
Okay.
We're not putting in filters under this particular project.
Okay, so it's one big tank?
And then,
Full of-
yeah, and the pump station's on top of the tank.
Okay. And how much, I mean, how far below grade will the tank top be?
Pete, you know that.
Yeah, the tank top will actually be right at grade, right? And then it's gonna go down to about an elevation of 455, and you'll have a little haunch section that's 3 feet below it for pumping. So it's gonna go down below grade, you know, probably about that 20 feet or a little bit less thereabouts.
So will the entire site be loamed and seeded like it is now or not?
Yeah, so you're gonna have a tank will be popping right out of the ground at grade. So that's gonna have a concrete top. Well, the building on top of that, all the other area will be loam and seeded with the exception where the new access road is gonna go to allow vehicles to travel through there, have deliveries, because there will be a chemical that's stored in there on sodium hypochlorite. And if you ever had to do pump maintenance in the building, you would need a vehicle to be able to get there and load and take out the pumps. So that's kind of the plan as to what we have laid out right now.
All right, thank you. Any further questions from the commission? Seeing none, any questions or comments from the audience concerning this project? All right, so I think Meredith and Melissa can arrange a site visit within the next two weeks, and we can continue this on August 24th and hopefully finish it up at that time. Anything else, Melissa or Meredith?
I would just wonder, do you anticipate having draft conditions to discuss at the August 24th meeting?
Special conditions? I don't know. I guess it depends on what we see out at the site. We can't discuss these once once we continue this until the next meeting,
Right.
as a commission. So,
Yeah, and I was awaiting the city engineer's comments on the stormwater piece of it. That was another reason we were thinking continuing would be beneficial, and then we could look at the site and just make sure we're understanding where everything's occurring.
Yeah,
You
just
know-
offer two for consideration that as part of the development of the stormwater management plan, we did coordinate with the assistant city engineer, Jeremy Siegel. So we went through and talked about the approach and the assumptions that were being made as part of the HydroCAD analysis associated with looking at the stormwater runoff as part of that plan. So we did that pre-coordination as well.
all right. So,
Do you know, and do you know where the city engineer stands with their review? Have they reached back out to you?
I haven't heard anything back. I sent this to them a couple weeks ago and I received the notice.
Okay.
And I know he's on vacation. He's been on vacation. So I think summer is getting in the way of some progress, but I mean, there's no major cause for concern. I think it's just our normal practice to look at the site, get the sign off from our engineer, and I don't see many red flags as far as wrapping it up next.
right,
Thank you.
okay.
Thanks, everybody, for their time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight.
So no further discussion at this time. Entertain a motion to continue to August 24th.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor now. Bob,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Cliff,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4, public meetings. Westfield Department of Public Works. Can you give us an update, Meredith?
So we have an RDA in front of us. I believe Scott Hathaway is here. We've had this on the agenda for a few meetings now, but then things kept coming up. So I haven't been able to hear the presentation from Scott, and I'd just like to introduce him and have him tell us what this is all about.
Welcome, Scott.
Hi, thank you.
We can see you're on your beautiful deck there.
Yeah, I couldn't get the iPad run. I didn't know where, I don't even know where my iPad is, so I have to use my phone, so I apologize.
That's okay.
So, yeah, what we're trying to do is just get the approval on the the RDA and the YOP for the next 5 years. And it's pretty standard. We had this, I'm just using the same person that I used, or they used before I took this position.
I guess we had some questions or concerns on where this is going to occur in the city.
So right now where I've been concentrating is well one with the Japanese knotweed, manually removing it. We also have a physical barrier to smother it, and also a stem cut at the fall time after flowering. So it'll minimize the amount of glyphosate that we'll use, and because it is fairly close, it's really close to the stream. And then the other area Meredith and I have been talking about it before COVID was Whitney, and Whitney Playground. We'd like to get rid of the invasives that are down there. Japanese knotweed, there's buckthorn, there's all our buddies are down there. So that could be a really nice area if we could knock that down and reclaim it with natural vegetation, our natives.
Mhm.
So those are the two areas that we use primarily, is that's close to the sensitive areas.
Is the well one, is that the one near Pond Brook?
It's in between Springdale and
Paper Mill?
Paper Mill.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Pond Brook, yes, okay. Because that's been going on several years, that trying to get rid of the knotweed.
Yeah, trying.
Yeah, and that was part of another notice of intent, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Okay.
As far as Whitney's concerned, I mean, how close to the edge of the river are you? Do you want to do this?
As close as I can. But yeah, I mean, you know how the stuff works. It's absolutely horrendous to control. We can't even get in to mow it. What I'd like to do is get it down to like a park-like atmosphere. We'd have picnic tables in there. Eversource is bringing in, or not, who is it, Meredith? Eversource or Time Bond? That's had the
trees.
trees.
That's a city project.
That's Time Bond. I can't remember where the money's coming from because of the rail trail.
Yeah, I think it's a city grant that I don't know if they have the money yet to do the mitigation for that other project, but that tree planting is part of another project.
Sure. Okay. But like I was talking to Meredith today, I've kind of put that on hold because I've got so many other projects right now. All we've been doing is trying to remove it mechanically, just mowing it. Which is ridiculous. It's just knocking it down. So if a foul ball goes out there, they can find it. That's pretty much what we're doing at this point. Meredith and I also talked about hiring a subcontractor out of Amherst, who's familiar with them, to help us with the eradication program down at Whitney, which I think is a much better way to go, seeing that right now I'm the only one that holds the license to put down the product. And I'm stretched thin. I can't do it. I need help. So, but anyway, we'll talk about that. I can put that into the budget. And yeah, those are pretty much the primary areas that we're working at.
Let me share the vegetation management plan.
Sure.
This is, let me see what page this is. So there's a vegetation management plan and then a yearly operation plan. It talks about controlling vegetation. Again, it's like a general plan. It doesn't really say where, but this is what they have for working near wetlands. And public water supplies, vernal pools. So, yeah, I guess, so this is kind of outlining what we would be permitting down there. Just see. It's basically, it says 10 feet off of 10 to 100 feet from a wetland.
Mhm.
So I don't know, we definitely need a certified applicator to do any spraying down there. Oh yeah, here it is, surface waters within 10 feet from the mean annual high water line. And then it outlines what they would do there, selective chemical use or cutting and stumping. And it says you can only do it once a year.
Okay. Have the herbicides ever been used at Whitney before?
No,
No? Just mowing?
they weren't even doing that.
Okay.
So when I got there, yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was such a mess. It was huge. Plus all the leftover Japanese knotweed from year after year, that biomass that just, got so huge down there. It really needs to be addressed. I was looking at, I found some pictures of Whitney way back in the 70s, and it was really impressive. I said, God, that's what spurred me on to say, hey, let's try to work on this and see if we can get this back to, because otherwise people have no place to go except into the ball fields. And that area would be nice to have them to be able to, use that area safely, because there's a lot of trees that need to come out of there too.
So you would remove the knotweed manually or with machines and then cut it and then spray the stumps that are left behind? Is that?
Well, actually with knotweed, the best time to spray it is in around September after it flowers.
Okay.
So the pollinators aren't around, and usually later, like at nighttime when they're gone. So that minimizes, any pollinators being affected, and also translocating the material into the root system to have a higher kill rate. So
you spray the plants while they are without
Yeah.
cutting them first. Okay.
Yeah, right. Because you get more using a surfactant too. So you would get a better coverage on the plant, and you'd get more of the material into the root system. If you cut them all, then you literally would have to spray into each stem, which can be done, but that area is huge down there to do, especially if you're talking, myself or, one other person. And that's why we started talking about possibly subbing that out to a company that does mitigation like that.
Scott, most petroleum, most stuff is petroleum based, correct? Your surfactants?
Yes, it depends if the label requires to use a surfactant or not. So I'd have to read the pesticide label before I put the application down.
Yeah, but most surfactants are petroleum based. So you're getting pretty close to the resource area, the river.
So what about dishwashing liquid?
That works. That's what we use,
Okay, we can use that too.
but that's petroleum based too.
Then I won't use it. So I think we'll have a pretty good success rate if we don't use the surfactant and I just use the glyphosate by itself.
I think so.
Okay.
Right, other questions? Meredith, does this satisfy some of your questions about where they wanted to do this and how?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Would you want any more information before if you wanted to close the public meeting?
And I know the general vicinity. I mean, I know Whitney Field. I haven't seen the extent of the knotweed.
Mhm.
But I mean, you guys issued a -2 in 2016, but I don't know if it was for this particular area.
Do you want to see the area identified more specifically before we approve this, or could that be a condition of the approval?
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be a condition.
Okay. How would that fit with the commission?
I would be okay with that, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion then?
So I guess a question, would we require that the sites be identified and approved by the coordinator before treatment began?
I think that would help. Then we would know
Okay.
exactly where they're spraying.
That would seem reasonable.
Yeah, they could flag it off or something in the field.
Yeah.
Scott, can you give us that courtesy?
Absolutely.
All right. Any further discussion then of this item? Any questions from the audience concerning this particular item? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to close the public meeting.
So moved.
I have a second.
I'll be the
I'll
second.
second. We're fighting each other.
Colleen, your choice.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Bob,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Tim,
Yep.
Cliff,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion on the determination?
I'll make a motion that we approve with a -2 with the following conditions. First, the applicant will keep the commission updated on progress, and the location of work will be indicated and approved by the coordinator prior to work. Second, if herbicides are to be used in wetlands, a WM04 permit must be filed with the Mass DEP.
Anything you'd like, let's have a second first. You have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Does that satisfy our concerns, Meredith?
Think if I can approve the work area and, oh, also maybe have a condition that only herbicide is sprayed at night, because there's a lot of pollinators that use the knotweed. And
Okay.
Scott already said he was going to do that. So
After it flowers.
after it flowers, sorry. Yeah.
But also at night too, just in case, because there's still going to be flowers out that you're not going to see.
So do you want to amend your motion, Carl?
I'll amend it then that the spraying is to be done after flowering and at night.
Okay. And who, we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Bob,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jim,
Yep.
Alex,
Yes.
Cliff,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
Thank you. And I'll vote yes as well. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay,
Yep.
Item B, Route Road. Water chestnut plants removal. Any update, Meredith?
I think the applicant has some updates for us.
Yeah, if I could step in, I get to take tonight off because Aliki Fournier is with us. Aliki is one of the planners at Connecticut River Conservancy. Aliki, welcome. Please be there. Aliki?
Hi, can you hear me? I just lost internet connection.
Yes.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
I'm here to connect. Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry, just all of a sudden my internet just popped. I've been on perfectly well for the last 2 hours. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, thanks for your patience, Aliki. It's been a long wait for you and for the others. But yes, we can hear you just fine.
Great, thank you so much. Let me know if you lose me at any point. I'm not sure what's going on, but hopefully it'll stick. Hi, everyone. I'm here with the Connecticut River Conservancy. I'm the ecology planner at the organization. A little bit background about us. We're a 4-state watershed organization and nonprofit based in Greenfield, Massachusetts, but working in the states of Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. We're advocating for the rivers, the wildlife, and equal access to the river for all communities. And essentially we're here essentially to apply for the continuing efforts of water chestnut removal at the Brickyard Ponds East and West. Our role as water chestnut invasive control manager essentially started from, we started because the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service folks who led this movement back before we took over had Cynthia Bettner in charge of the collaborative. And after Cynthia Bettner retired and we found out that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service wasn't able to replace her, CRC decided to take on the role of primary resource for the communication within the collaborators. That essentially means we were able to provide communication resources, supplies, and volunteers to anybody part of this effort. What I mean by collaborators are over 160 people who partner in this effort to remove the invasive water chestnut from our watershed in all 4 states. And so the Brickyard Ponds are are 2 of those sites that are infested with the water chestnut, and we'd like to continue the efforts there. If I'm able to, I'd like to share my screen just so that I can show what areas we're talking about, if that's okay. Let's see. I would like to show another screen, 1 second. So these are the Brickyard Ponds in Westfield, right at the intersection of Root Road and North Road. We are talking about properties 104 Root Road, 405 North Road, and 30 Summit Road, Summit Luck Road. This work has been going on for several years, and thanks to the participation of Cynthia Bettner, Jeff Bettner, Liz Hall, and her son Philip Hall, we've been able to control the growth of the water chestnut in that water body. And we'd like to continue these efforts for the next several years through pools via canoes and kayaks. I should give a bit more information about the water chestnut plant. It's an invasive that was introduced in the 70s, I believe, as a decorative plant in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it quickly spread via wildlife mainly, but also spread via motorboats to the rest of the East Coast and can be now found in Georgia all the way up to Canada. This plant grows multiple rosettes. The one seed may grow multiple rosettes, and each rosette can grow about 10 seeds, and each seed is viable for 12 years. So not being able to pull every single plant from a water body can create another load of work for another 12 years, essentially. So, which is why it's really important for us to keep going out there and keep pulling plants every year, making sure that we get every single one of them.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
Aliki, specifically when we talked about this project 2 weeks ago, the commissioner, the chairman, requested documentation that CRC has insurance for projects like this, and that volunteers sign waivers. Can you give us that assurance tonight?
Yes, absolutely. So what will happen is we were contacted by the 2 landowners, as you can see here on these pictures, considering they were having concerns regarding how what the liability was around the activity on their property. And so we are able to add them to our insurance coverage, similarly to how we'd add an event venue to our insurance coverage to cover for liability and property damage. And so that's what we're able to do. And once this process is done, every participant who goes to these properties to do the said activity is asked to fill a liability waiver, essentially waiving all liability from the property owners and the organizations and the leaders involved in said activity. I have here the participant waiver. We ask all our volunteers to sign. This language can be found on our website at ctriver.org/waiver. It's pretty straightforward, and this is what we have all volunteers and all participants sign before their participation in an event or volunteer activity.
Thank you. That certainly answers my questions. So, okay.
And Aliki, you will be reaching out directly to the 2 involved landowners. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, so I've already had a conversation with George and Peggy Gary, as well as Brian Morgo, if I'm not saying that right, Morgo, about this process. I did get their consent to begin the process of adding them to our insurance coverage, and they are eager to continue the work with us.
Great. Thank you, Aliki.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions from the commission? Any questions or comments from anyone in the audience concerning this particular project? Meredith, are we all set?
Yeah, I don't see any comments from the public. I think Aliki answered all our questions from last time, so I think we can move forward.
Yes, very well. Thank you. All right, entertain a motion to close the public meeting.
So move.
Have a second.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Bob?
Yes.
Jim?
Yep.
Tom?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Cliff?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. All right, do we have a motion on the determination?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we go with -2. With the following conditions. That the landowners are notified when the work will occur. The plant matter will be removed off-site, and the applicant will keep the commission updated on progress.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that with a potential addition, just that vehicles parked at the site are there for a minimal time as possible. I know that was one of the landowner concerns.
Okay, is that all right, Jim, for your motion?
Yes, yes, please add that.
All right. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Bob?
Yes.
Jim?
Yep.
Tom?
Oh, yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Cliff?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. Thank you and good luck.
Yeah, thanks, Saliki. Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank
Okay,
you.
item 5, enforcement. 88 Furrow Town Road. Ryan, you're up.
Sure, everyone again. Attempt to share my screen here. Give me 1 second. Okay. So last time we presented the existing conditions we found. There's a wetland located well away from the subject lawn and work area located off-site here. But the more, I guess, relevant resource area is an IVW surrounding an existing well, the boundary located here. So if you can see, this aerial depicts forested conditions prior to the clearing. And then there's, it's hard to see with the background, but anyway, there was pretty much an outer 50 to 100 foot area that was removed of trees and converted to lawn. At the last meeting, we discussed mitigation for this unpermitted work would be to provide some plantings within the 50-foot buffer zone to this IVW. This has always been lawn all along. So we would be, reverting this to a natural planted area. So our plan for that was to put 4 service berries kind of along the tree line closer to the woods, and then 10 blueberry shrubs in front of those more out towards the center of the lawn within that 50-foot buffer zone area. So.
Thank you. Yes.
Yep.
Again, just waiting for the updated plan, but any questions from the commission?
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, I think I'm seeing what, when I was at the site, Estelle has a really kind of a nice little garden, a little standalone garden, and I think it's just outside the 50-foot. Am I correct? Is it that little structure I'm trying to?
Behind the garage.
She said behind the garage. I'm not sure where. I don't quite remember it, but.
The garage is just the building.
Yeah, I think it's clear. I think it's, if
I
I
think it's
had
directly
my,
directly behind the garage, right?
Right.
and it is outside the 50-foot, is that correct also?
Looks like it, yes.
And Estelle, you also had a very pretty little garden area directly behind the house, out a little bit, maybe, I don't know, maybe 15 yards past your driveway.
Right.
Is that, Ryan, is that what I'm seeing, the white structure about in the middle of the page right now? You go straight back from the garage?
This?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, quite sure
Estelle,
what that is.
There was
Estelle, what is that?
Trying to think, because there was some, where that little tree is, I can't really tell. That my magnolia tree is, I think, right around, I think this is it, but I can't tell for sure. that it's right behind. There was a concrete area. But where old barns used to be pieces of it. And that could be that. I'm not sure. Have to wait. Let me look at another map.
Outside the 50.
See if I can find what it is.
It does appear it is outside the 50-foot, David, and that's what I was concerned about. If not, I think we should make a condition that we're not enveloping any of her garden areas, of any of these 2 garden areas, I should say.
Right.
I think those are outside the 50.
All right, good. Then
from what
I'm okay then.
Yeah. All right. So everybody acceptable to the plan that Ryan has submitted?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think I have one comment. I didn't realize this earlier, but how does Shadbush do in wet conditions? Because that area right next to the isolated wetland it seems to be pretty wet. I mean, I know we've had a wet year, but every time I've been out there, it had standing water. I don't know if we'd want to move them further out. I can't picture them doing well in standing water.
It's probably not standing. I haven't really walked out there, but early spring, maybe it's damp, snow, what melt, things like that. But I've had gardens there, and I've had the water. They don't produce enough water to sustain themselves.
I mean, I just don't want to prescribe something that's not going to do well. Do you know the indicator status for Amelanchier canadensis, Ryan?
Let me look it up.
I have a feeling it's FAC, but I can't remember. Anyways, I think the blueberry shrubs will do really well there. And I just wasn't sure about the Amelanchier, but overall, I think this is a great compromise to.
It's FAC up.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And I don't want you to have to redo this plan again, but is anyone else concerned about, would we want to put the Amelanchier closer to the outer 50?
Or what is a good vegetation that does like wet roots?
Winterberry.
In the spring.
Winterberry.
And we've got some of that, right?
Winterberry does real well in wet conditions.
Well, let's just change it then.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have serviceberry. Yes. So yeah, let's change it.
Is that amenable, Ryan?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, let's do that then. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice. And then we can approve it. I'm sure Ryan can just update that label and we could approve it tonight.
Okay. All right, then entertain a motion to approve the restoration plan as submitted by RLA with Winterberry substituted for the serviceberry on the plan.
So moved.
So moved.
All right.
I beat you that time, Carl.
Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you're way slow, Carl.
I'm getting tired, I guess.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Bob,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Cliff, Jim.
Yep.
Okay. Ryan, can you please
Yes.
move your screen? Okay, Cliff.
Yes.
Yes, okay, and I'll vote yes as well. Thank you. And thank you, Estelle, for working with us.
Okay.
Thank you, Estelle. And if you need help figuring out where to get the plants, I can help you with that.
Okay.
Okay,
Good night,
yeah.
Ryan.
Good
Thank you,
night,
everyone.
Ryan.
Yep,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Hey, discussion, item A, transmission right-of-way lines. Request for certificate of compliance. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Is there, sorry, is there someone here to talk about this? I think it's pretty cut and dry what we need to do.
No, they aren't able to come. They called me earlier, family emergency. So, I reviewed, I've been out to this right away multiple times. They have other notices of intent that are kind of overlapping with these general work areas. So they're not going anywhere. I mean, I think this one was, let me see. This was permitted in 2018 and the work is completed. It's revegetated. I think you can approve this one with no questions.
Okay. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Alex,
Yes.
Jim,
Yep.
Tom,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Cliff,
Yes.
okay, and Bob.
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Okay, item B, 163 Union Street. Again, requests continuance to August 24th. We have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
So Meredith indicated we need a site visit, or at least she needs a site visit.
Well, quick question for you guys on this one. They did, I don't know if you remember the Salt
Yeah, I do.
City. They had a small comp storage area that was taken out of sort of a gravelly, I want to call it a side bank. I don't know. It was like this gravel area and it's not yet revegetated. They did an as-built, they took the material out and it's not revegetating because it's essentially gravel. So they applied for the COC. I then sent me a picture and it's not vegetated. So I don't really know. And I don't think it's going to get vegetated without some loaming and seeding.
Right.
So, you guys typically would want to see a comp storage area revegetated, right? Before you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was vegetated before, just to be clear.
That's what I don't know. I don't know if it was
Is the
vegetated.
adjacent area vegetated? Or?
Yeah, the adjacent. Yeah, it's just weeds, it's kind of just what can grow in minimal soil conditions. So they'll just have to figure out how to.
They got to figure out how to get it to grow. And if they end up deciding to put loam in, then they better take the comparable amount of other material out first.
Yeah.
So that we still have the comp storage.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to keep this one off until they get it revegetated.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so we do have a motion to continue and a second. So all in favor, Alex,
Yes.
Jim,
Yeah.
Tom,
Tom votes yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Cliff,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes as well. Okay, item C, Southampton Road, Sovereign Builders. Here we need to reissue the extension because unfortunately they lost the original paperwork.
So this is just, we issued a extension in June 2020, which extended the existing order of conditions until May 15th, 2023. But then that paperwork was lost, so it couldn't be recorded. And they need to have the original signed signature page to record it at the registry.
Okay,
So
so
it's-
a motion to reissue the extension for this particular item for 333745. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Alex,
Yes.
Jim,
Yep.
Tom,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Cliff. All right, and
Yes.
yes too. Okay, thank you. Item 7, other items, minutes from July 13th. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of July 13th, 2021?
I'll make that motion.
Have a second?
Sure. Second.
Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? Cliff,
Yes.
Alex?
Abstain, I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, Carl?
Yes.
Jim?
Abstain, I wasn't at the meeting.
Hey, Tom?
I'll vote yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. A motion to approve the minutes of July 27th, 2021.
I think we wanted to hold off on these ones. I apologize for them being on there. I wanted to look at how I had put 81 Fowler again. I wanted to go over that again before I approve them. So let's nix that one for now.
All right, we did approve the other one. Okay.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
All right. All right, item 8 on discussion. In the ordinance update. Meredith has been working on some of Carl's updates. And I guess our final concerns were tree replacement policies. Bob, you had some suggestions on that?
On the ordinance update, yeah, I've talked to Meredith, and I think we've come up with some things that are reasonable. If you want to tell the commission, Meredith, what we talked about, I would be good with that.
Yeah, Bob called about, having a range of gallon types for people to choose, because depending on what's available, they may not have 2-gallon pots, and also 3-gallon pots are going to be taller and more developed than a 2-gallon pot. So just number 3 for the replacement of tree and shrub requirements, we're going to change that to 3 to 5-gallon pots. Also, there was a concern about people digging up saplings in the uplands or anywhere and just calling those good. So I think one of the asterisks will just say containers or ball and burlap preferred. And then the other thing that we need to discuss, I wasn't sure how many shrubs would be appropriate to replace a large tree that's going to be cut. I mean, I said, so for a tree that's greater than 6 inches, 2 native tree saplings or 5 native shrubs. Bob was suggested 6, and I don't really know how to determine that number scientifically. I guess you could figure out how the diameter of a huge tree, what that is, and base the shrub plantings on, they take up a 6-foot diameter, something like that. I can get more specific.
You mean the area of the coverage of the canopy?
Yeah, so say if you had a tree canopy that took up 36 feet in a circle, 36 square feet, wouldn't be a square, but in general. And then each shrub, like when you're going to propose shrubs in a certain area, you decide what the diameter will be of each shrub. So it's usually they 6 by 6, 6-foot diameter. So then you would divide that by the 36 feet. I'm not sorry, I'm not explaining it very well.
No.
But you take this square footage and you figure out how many shrubs will fit in that area based on the diameter per shrub that it needs to survive.
You just draw a circle.
Yeah, you draw a circle.
Yeah.
You draw a circle. Yeah, thank you.
You put in the shrubs, yeah.
The idea is then just to replant an equivalent canopy size. Is that it?
I think
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also the root structure, Carl, too. You want to
Right.
establish a good root structure. You cut down an established tree, you've compromised the root structure, okay? So obviously, 6 shrubs for something that's 10 inches diameter, it's going to establish itself good, and the roots are going to be good. You know what I mean? We're going to have not a lot of movement.
Mhm. But what the landowner or the consultant really would need to know to do that practically would be the equivalent canopy size or canopy area, I guess.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
but that was the idea of the ordinance, of the addition.
I mean, they can measure that before they cut the tree down.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
So should we not specify a certain amount of trees, just base it on,
I guess shrubs that will fill the lost canopy. It'll depend on how big the tree was.
yeah.
Right? You know,
Right.
I would have to agree with that.
yeah,
Okay.
whatever their plan is, they would have to put in their plan a drawing of the canopy and an estimate of how many shrubs they need to go in there, and we can approve that or change it.
So this is like a tree to a shrub conversion. That's what
Right.
we're
Yeah.
talking about. And then,
Yes.
so what are we doing with tree to tree? Like 2-to-1 was what was proposed before.
I think we did a 2-to-1, Alex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And those are the 2 to 2.5 inch DBH saplings or like caliper saplings.
Yeah.
Okay.
My,
So I
my,
think
con-
you're, yeah.
my concern, Meredith, today when we had this conversation was I was just concerned that somebody's going to go rip out invasives and replant them out. You know, we're talking about invasives, you know,
Yeah.
revegetate with invasive species, you know, and again, I wanted to make sure that was kind of clear that we set a B&B or a container so that someone's not going to just go into the woods and grab something that
Right.
is invasive and replant something that we're trying to get rid of.
Right.
Yeah, or even just
Bob, why wouldn't they just dig it up and put it in a container?
Well, they could, Tom, but good luck.
Well,
Yeah. Why, actually, more seriously, why is container favored over burlap and ball? Is there that much more soil for the roots to activate, or?
A lot less shock, that's all.
Well, the ordinance would say native species. So.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we all set.
Somebody's microphone. I couldn't hear you, David. Sorry.
Okay, there's also a question about increasing the possible fines. Right now, the limit is $100 a day. I know in one of our drafts, we put in up to 1,000. And Meredith suggested that instead of just saying up to 1,000, we would actually put in a definite range, like from 100 to 1,000. That'll give us the flexibility to pick a number that we think is reflective of the damage to the resource area.
I would be in favor of that approach, Mr. Chairman. My concern is if we just go with 1,000,
right,
that we won't do it. You know, let's say it's a small business, a small landowner, and the damage is not sufficient to support $1,000.
I thought I'd written up to 1,000, but maybe I forgot the up to. But
Yeah, so
I was going to
propose
say, I
we do
thought
the
that
range.
Yeah, I thought I remembered the language as up to,
Okay,
but
So
I don't have it in front of me.
yeah, well, let's put it a definite range then with from 100 to 1,000. And then it's more definite. How would that be for the commission?
Could we add one more thing, 100 to 1,000, depending upon condition, damage?
Okay,
you could, but that might just limit us more because if we get challenged in court, then all of a sudden now we're arbitrating over whether or not the limited damage met precedent for that level of fine. You know, if we just leave it off, then we have full discretion. We haven't caveated our authority. I think we're legally stronger without the additional clause.
Yeah, because if they bring in a forester, then he's going to be able to determine how much that tree
Price,
was
price,
worth.
price. And
Yeah.
then you guys were off your rocker giving them that number, so we're throwing all the fines out.
Okay.
You know, up to the consultant, their consultant to say what that tree was worth.
Okay. All right.
So
Let's just
for
do 100.
clarification,
Yes,
right now we have it as being Somebody who violates the provision of this ordinance may be punished by a fine of not more than $1,000 per day for each day the violation exists. Do we want that to say, I don't know, having discretion seems like, yeah, what are we gonna base it on?
Their consultant.
I'll put it on the consultant to come up with a
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. To say what, well, not the fine, but what the tree was worth. We don't know what the tree's worth.
Sure, if it's a tree, you know,
Right, they could be filling a wetland, altering a stream. You know, the way the DEP has their fine set up is they say $100 a day per violation. So if you took your bulldozer and plowed into a buffer zone, a BBW, and then a stream, that's 3 different resource areas, and you could be fined, I think, $100 per day for each of those resources.
But that's 3 different violations, right?
Right.
So now is it
It'd be
$300?
$300 a day until when, though, I guess, is I also don't know how many days. I think you have to at least show that you're responding to the cease and desist or ceasing and desisting or something like that.
Well, isn't that included in our ordinance already?
Yes, I think sort of. It talks about, yeah. Each day which a violation continues shall constitute a separate offense. And each provision of the ordinance, regulations, or permit violated shall constitute a separate offense. So basically anything, if you violate multiple orders in a order of conditions, that's, I don't, $100, or is that $1,000? That's what I'm not sure of.
Well, that's up to our discretion. If we leave the range at 100 to 1,000.
So should it read may be punished by a fine of $100 to $1,000 or
Per
up
vi-
to
Per
1,000
violation, yeah.
per violation? Okay.
per day.
Per
Right.
day.
Yeah.
I just
I mean-
remember the guy who clear cut, was it 10 acres off of North Road? And then it's so bad, the DEP came in and put in the fine of thousands and thousands of dollars. Yeah.
Now, this is going to legal for review after we
Yes, it is.
we
Yeah,
vote on it.
yeah,
I mean, and we
that's-
can caveat some things like this where, hey, where are we in the best, you know, legal position? Like if we just have to reword it, I think the commission's in the same spot. We want the flexibility to go higher than the 100, you know, up to the 1,000. However, you know, Shanna says it should be written is probably correct.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
because he's the one that's going to have to defend it for us in
Yeah.
court.
Just well, sorry, but if the fine things, are we all set on the fine?
Yes.
Okay, with the trees, with the 2-to-1 replication, are we proposing an alternate? So the problem is a lot of times from a layout perspective, you're impacting the buffer. And so you're eliminating that space where that tree was and likely possibly don't have other space in the resource to put 2 trees back instead of the one you took down. So, you know, just from a practicality standpoint, are we allowing anything else like, you know, hang into a bank or, you know, whatever it is? And I throw that out as the easy one, but it's hard to enforce and price and all those things. But, you know what I mean? From a practicality standpoint, if we're simply saying we're going to make it very difficult to make these impacts because you're effectively going to have to replicate the same canopy space within the resource, I mean, I'm fine with that. But I just want us to be clear on the intent of what we're putting forth. You know, I want to make sure that's an intended consequence and not an unintended consequence of what we're putting forth. Does everybody understand what I'm getting at? You know, if I were to draw a buffer zone and then slide that house that we had to approve up into that buffer zone, well, I've taken that space now with the house. So where do the trees go to replicate the ones that I just cut down? And so if our intent is that if you can't fit the trees, you can't build the house, that's fine, as long as that's what we intend. But we may need to make it overtly clear, like up front, that you shall comply with the mitigation requirements or the board will not approve your application. Because otherwise consultants are going to come in thinking that's the tree requirement, we'll find a way around it, just to find out that their applicant has spent tens of thousands of dollars on an application and they can't get it approved. And now everybody's mad and going to court. Whereas if it's right in our ordinance that it says, you know, and I'm speaking plainly, it would have to be put in nice language, but You know, the tree mitigation requirement has to be met, or we will not consider your 50-foot buffer zone, you know, impact or 100-foot buffer zone impact. Then they're just not going to propose it. You know, when they do their due diligence and look at the regs, they're going to say, well, we're not going to be able to get around this one. They're going to call Meredith, and she's going to be able to say, no, it's black and white. If you can't do it, the commission's not going to approve you. And they won't get to that point where everybody's, you know, threatening court because they've spent so much money already. So if it's intentional, I think we should make it clear in the ordinance that it's intentional. But if that's an unintentional consequence that I'm bringing up, then I think we need to think of what the alternate means are.
But Alex, I don't think our size requirement is huge, which, you know what I mean? We're not asking for a big caliper tree.
No, but if we think of, you know, we just said like canopy of the tree to shrub, we're going to take the same square footage or diameter, or, you know, we're going to take the same circular space on the lot somewhere that was canopy of that tree is going to become a circle of shrubs somewhere. So that still has to fit, and the way that we've written it, it has to fit somewhere that is no further than the closest impact to the wetland or the resource. So you really end up with a finite number of locations on a parcel. And so as long as that's our intention, and it may be, I just think we need to be very clear in the wetlands ordinance that that's the intention. So from a designer standpoint, they're focused on that as a design criteria when they're starting to put the plan together. And it's not like an, oh, I gotcha, right when you get, you know, right when you get to the finish line of trying to get the permit, there's this this condition that's not, I'm going to say, not necessarily typical across other, you know, municipalities, especially in Western Mass. So, you know, people aren't looking for this type of a trip in an ordinance. And so if we're going to have it, it just needs to be very highlighted so that it's not catching people off guard left and right. It's just going to make our life easier. That's all. It's like, it's fine to have it. We just need to make it obvious.
Well,
Otherwise, we're just going to be fighting people every meeting.
Would it be, oh, sorry.
Well, perhaps instead of making it so geometric, right now it reads with at least 2 native tree saplings. So, and that gives us the ability to add more if we want to.
Yeah, and the saplings those are going to be easier to put. So maybe it's that's when they're going to plant trees instead of trying to do the shrub thing, is that they're very limited in space. But you've got a lot of stacked requirements that really are going to limit down. I mean, think of I don't even want to talk about it because the project makes me angry, but think about the house and think about the building setback triangle and think about how little space there was left to do things on that site. I mean, that's just what you start to get into when you start looking at a plan. So if it's a requirement that the designer's considering from the beginning, they can work it in, or that house didn't have to be 30 by 40. So maybe it wouldn't have been if they knew it up front. You know, those are the types of things. You just got to make them obvious to the applicant and their consultant so that it's worked right into the fabric of the proposal.
Well, how about changing it to at least 5 native shrubs and saying it has to be so many per, per canopy? With that, we can say, well, 5 isn't enough, and go from there.
I mean, I like the logic behind what, Bob and Meredith presented earlier about, especially the root structure of taking down a mature tree. Well, we're worried about stabilizing the ground. So we're really trying to put a root structure in that entire area, which previously had one. That makes a lot of sense to me.
I think in doing the ordinance redo, I think the more definitive we can be, like with the 50-foot, the shorter our meetings are going to be.
Right, there won't be as much arguing if it's black and white in the ordinance. We won't have this pushback of, well, it's not in your ordinance, the 50-foot no disturb. So I think Alex's point is that, they may not have enough space in or near the resource area to do these replacements. So perhaps they could do either off-site mitigation, which isn't ideal, but is an option, and or what if they planted in the uplands? Like for this single family home tonight, they could have done numerous plantings along the road. I mean, anything to get more shade and more trees out there when they're cutting trees.
And if we're going to allow those things, then we just need to be prepared to, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm talking about. We don't want this to be unintended and then get into a meeting setting with the ordinance and we're all happy because we got an ordinance, and now the 7 of us are fighting over what was intended by something like the tree mitigation. you know, and in the example you just gave, we'd probably be waiving, if it's still in there, and I apologize, I didn't read it word for word, but I recall reading language saying something like it had to be as close as the closest impact or something. Well, if we're going to start allowing it in the upland or in an alternate site, we're waiving that requirement now. So we just have to be careful with how that gets applied. And again, I'm okay with it. It's just how firm are we going to be on it, and how clear are we going to make that to people coming in that there's not a bunch of wiggle room on these requirements.
But I guess, yeah, I guess we have to decide if we're going to be.
But if somebody wants to do more,
Last agenda.
I guess we're fine with that, right?
I'd absolutely agree.
But I don't think they're going to want to. I mean, the problem is they're going to not have enough space near the wetland or the resource.
I know, but if they want to put them out of the resource area,
oh, they can do more.
If they want to do more, I think we would be receptive to that.
The new ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, are we saying something like, you know, if it's in the upland, it's got to be 3 to 1, or you know what I mean? Like, or are we just establishing the precedent that they shall exceed the standard if they cannot
I saw him go
meet
through
the
'cause they
standard of
showed
it being near the resource? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's where we're going. But I think we need to, on this, making things clear, you know, we just got to set that standard,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Yeah, we got to nail that down a little bit more, I think.
Yeah. And that's going to eliminate, you know, then we'll have discussed it here, and we will not have to discuss it after every application that comes in the door, so.
This woman is in love with you.
I think we need to do some more research on this particular item.
Yeah, I'd like to look into that a little more, David.
Okay. Well, let's try to get this all, you know, all nailed down by the next meeting, so we can get a draft and send it off to the attorney.
Yeah, were there any other comments? I did add a bunch of definitions, and, you know, I did add this tree replacement thing, but I think the applicants, you know, to work in the buffer zone, they need to give something back to the resources. And I think this is a fair way to do so. People are constantly cutting trees and not replanting them, and we have no backbone to say you have to. So
that's why I think like a 2 to 1.
Every meeting, I'm always like, you're cutting this tree, you need to do a replacement, and it's always pushback. So it just felt like.
That's why I always think that like a 2 to 1 is good. You know, you're going to cut a tree, you're going to have to replace it with 2.
Right.
So you're going to think about cutting one tree.
Right.
Is it practical though? Like, where are they going to put these trees? That's the concern. And I guess
I think we got to look into that.
Okay.
All right, so let's do that over the next 2 weeks, and then come back in 2 weeks and again, nail this down and label it as a draft and send it off to the attorney. And then they can make their comments and send it back to us. And then, you know, if we like it, we'll just, you know, pass it with a motion and then
send it to city council, and then they'll send it back to us.
Yeah. I don't know if it has to go to city council. I'm not sure. I don't know who it goes to. Yeah.
I think it does. I think city council has to approve our local ordinance change.
Okay.
I believe Alex is right. And Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a couple of comments, so before you close.
Sure.
Going through all the proposed changes that Meredith just sent over, I'm in agreement with everything, and I applaud all the work that you folks have done. The next thing I am wondering though, after the city attorney or before that, you know, there's a number of counselors that are assigned to Conservation Commission. I'm not sure exactly what their subcommittee is called. That, you know, visit our meeting periodically and have contact with us. And I'm wondering if it might be a good idea to float this by them first, these changes.
Well, I think I'd rather send them to the attorney first. So she says that it's legal. And then we can go from there, you know?
Yeah. Right, I'm sorry. Yeah, natural resources. I know, you know, I believe, you know, Bob Oniski, I think.
Yeah.
Bill's probably on it. And
yeah, he's been on our, you know, here a number of times and given very good feedback back to the board also. But it might be a good idea to at least float it by at least one counselor.
Yeah. Well, let's do that after the attorney, I think. So we know that, you know, we have good standing. At least
Good.
what we've written.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thanks for all your input, everybody. And we'll get this done as quickly as we can. So I think it'll make our lives a lot easier having all this stuff written down.
Yeah, I agree.
Hope so.
Okay. So, number 9, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Or a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Alex,
Yes.
Jim,
Yep.
Tom,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Cliff,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
All right, and I say yes as well. Well, thank you. And thank you, Peter.